Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, I'm going to be bringing you guys the best star powers and gadgets for every single brawler in the game right now. So there's not two gadgets for every single brawler in the game, but when there is a brawler with two gadgets, I'll be giving you guys the best build for that certain brawler. And also throughout the video, I'm going to be starting from the starter brawler all the way up to legendary. So if you want to skip parts and want to just see the legendary brawlers at the end, for example, or the mythic brawlers, you can skip through to that part. But without further ado, let's jump into it. Right, guys, jumping into the first brawler, which is of course the starter brawler, Shelly. So this one, it's a bit of an obvious choice. Both of these combination, well, this combination is by far the best one. So it's going to be the gadget fast forward, closing down the gap between the enemies, allows you to chain your super a lot quicker. And then the star power shell shock, it actually slows people for 4 seconds. Now it's actually a very long time. It still doesn't make Shelly near enough as good as she can be. She probably is the worst brawler in the game right now, so that combination is going to be by far the best. Clay pigeons is just not very good. Band-aid, not really good at all either, so this is the best combination by far. So the next brawler is Nita, one of the best brawlers in the game right now, and a combination that a lot of people tend to use, and now I've started to like a lot more. It's a fox fur gadget combination with the bear with me star power. That's going to be the best combination for a lot of different game modes like gem grab, Brawl, just because it pushes people back. The fox fur gives, I think, a 35% shield for 3 seconds. That's such a really good, especially the combination with the bear with me. And the only really other modes you want to be using, the other star power hyper bear, it's going to be heist, where you're able to get the bear on the safe. And other than that, don't really use stun too often, except for if I maybe face a lot of Jackie on ladder, then I'll probably switch to the gadget out just because it deals a little bit better with tanks. But other than that, that combination is going to be so much better. So next up is Colt, and I feel like this is a really simple one because the gadget, everyone's going to be using Silver Bullet. It deals 3000 damage and is just by far the better gadget for Colt. That's what makes him meta, so you need to be running this gadget if you have it available. And then for star powers, a lot of people tend to just use personal preference because both are pretty good. But in terms of pro and the top end of competitive, people use Magnum Special because it increases bullet speed by 11% and gives you that extra range. Sometimes, as I said, some people might prefer Slick Boots, but I'll say 9 out of 10 pros use Magnum Special. So next up is Bull, and Bull has two very good gadgets, and this can come down to a lot of personal preference, but I would say the best gadget to use in terms of Brawl would be the Stomper gadget. You can make some really cool plays, and Gem Grab as well. Other than that, I tend to use T-Bone Inject. 1500 healing is insane, especially when you combine this with the star power of a Tough Guy. That would be the star power to use in every single game mode as well. Even in Heist, I use Tough Guy a lot, but you can actually use Berserk if you want. It actually recently got a buff to 60% instead of the last 40, so it is viable on Heist, but I would say the best combination for me is T-Bone Injector and Tough Guy. So Jessie is next up, and again another brawler that has two really good gadgets, but in personal opinion, I tend to use Spark Plug a lot more other times because Jessie I normally push on Gem Grab or Brawl, and that slow is really effective. But then you can use the other gadget, Recall Spring, on game modes like Heist and Siege, where it doubles the amount of shots that actually come out of the turret. It can actually deal an insane amount of damage if you catch people off guard. And then a star power is a really easy choice for me. Shocky is an awful star power in my opinion, especially at the higher end of trophies. I always use Energize, and especially since it got a buff around 900 healing every time you shoot a turret, it's just insane. That's going to be the best combinations for me. So moving on to Brock, this is probably one of the easiest choices I've had to make in terms of combinations. So I prefer by far, and I'll see every single pro use this combination as well, it's Rocket Fuel for Gadget. Even with the big damage nerf that it got within the last set of balances, it still deals with 2100 damage. That's still insane. You're near enough going to hit that rocket all of the time, and it also breaks up a wall, so it counters a lot of different brawlers, and one of the main reasons why Brock's even viable in the meta with the amount of nerfs he's got. And then Incendiary as well, I only see people use this on Brock. So Brock's a really versatile brawler. You can use both star powers and both gadgets, but this is going to be the best combo for me. Next up is Dynamite, and in terms of gadgets, it's really easy to pick between the two gadgets. Satchel Charge is by far the better gadget. Fidget Spinner just is a terrible gadget. No way better than Satchel Charge. It's the only reason why Dynamite's even that good in the game, because of how good the gadget is. But in terms of star powers, I always see a huge debate about this. I will always use Demolition just because I don't see the point in wasting ammo and jumping around, but it does have good usages as well, Dino Jump. But I feel like you're kind of wasting ammo, as I said. Demolition is just a really good star power. You can one-shot a lot of different brawlers if you're consistently hitting them supers over and over again. 4000 damage is a lot of damage, so that's my personal preference. It'll be Dino Jump and Satchel Charge. So next up is Bowen. He's a super versatile brawler with his gadgets and star powers. Both can be used in different ways. So first off, with his gadget, Super Totem, you mainly want to use that in Bounty when using comps with Nanny specifically involved with it, and 8-bit and Mortis. They're going to be the combos that a lot of people use on Bounty. Is a super OP way to win. And then I use Tripwire on every other single mode just because I don't really like the playstyle with Super Totem. I play too passive when I'm using that gadget. So I use Tripwire, even though it's been nerfed and nowhere near as good as it once was. You can still get some decent usages out of it. And then for the star powers, the Vision star power only want to use on Snake Prairie. That's the only map literally in the game you'll be wanting to use that. Other than Showdown might be pretty good in. But in terms of 3v3, Snake Prairie, only Vision. And then the other star power, Snare Bear, for literally every single map and mode you want to be using that. So next up is Tick. Unfortunately, he only has one gadget, but with star powers, both star powers are pretty good. But I would say near enough all of the time I'm using automatic just because Tick has a really slow reload speed, and you want to be staying out of a damage as way anyway. Behind a wall, you're not going to be taking too much damage too often, so that's why I really prefer this star power. But again, it's kind of personal preference. It just depends on what you like more. So next up is 8-bit, and for me this is a really easy pick in terms of gadget and star powers, but for other people it's a split opinion between both of the gadgets. But I tend to use near enough every single time a cheat cartridge. Even in gamers like Heist and Siege, I get way more value out of this gadget because it can keep you alive a lot of the times, and it allows you to be really aggressive, and then you can just TP back to your turret. It's just such an underrated gadget in the game. I would highly recommend it if you haven't tried it out for yourself. And then for star powers, there's no doubt that plugged in is going to be the better star power here. It's probably the best star power in the game, and it makes 8-bit viable in the meta. So next is Ems. Ems only has one gadget, one of the worst gadgets in the game, unfortunately, so you're gonna have to stick with that one. But with star powers, Bad Karma and Hype, both of them are really good. And again, it depends on your playstyle. Me personally, I way prefer Hype just because I like to get a lot of value out of my super. You can near enough 1v3 with the Hype. 420 healing a second is insane. But also Bad Karma is really underrated on certain maps like Ring of Fire. Bad Karma can be really good. It does a lot of damage, really underrated. But Ems overall is really bad, so it's just dependent on what you prefer with the star powers. So next up is El Primo, one of the worst brawlers in the game, but it's good in the sense that you can use both gadgets and both star powers. It can come down to what you prefer. But in terms of me, what I prefer, Suplex is a really good star power in Brawl. That's going to be his best mode. That can be really good because it can cancel a lot of people's supers, and it can allow you to cycle your super a lot more. Or you can use Asteroid Belt. It's really good for pressure and can be really good at forcing enemies a certain way, and can be really annoying. But then in the long term, if you don't get good value out of your gadgets, you're just going to be breaking up the map and making it easier for brawlers to counter you, like B, like Colt. They're just everywhere in the meta, and if you open up the map even more, it's going to lead to you getting hard countered even more. So I tend to stay away from Asteroid Belt for the most part. And then star powers, El Fuego, I like to use in every other mode other than Brawl. I like to use the speed star power in Brawl just because it allows you to get goals much quicker. So next up is Barley. For me, this is a really easy one. For gadgets, I use Herbal Tonic everywhere, and so do all the pros. I've never really seen the other gadget being played since this new gadget has been introduced. 500 healing for 5 seconds is just insane. There's no way you can miss out on that one. Again, for star powers as well, I see every single player use the healing one. I think it's medical. You heal every single time you take a shot, and that's just insane. So that's going to be the best combo by far for Barley. So again, another easy one. There's no other combo you can really use other than the Capo, and the only one gadget that Poco has. The Capo is just by far the better star power. 700 healing every single time you shoot behind your teammates. It's insane with Poco double tank. And then the gadget, he's only got one gadget, so you're gonna have to use that one. So next up with Rosa. Rosa has one gadget as well, and the star power that I use is Plant Life because that synergizes so well with Rosa's gadget. 200 healing every single time you're in a bush. It's just insane synergy with that gadget. Maybe when Rosa gets another gadget, you can use the other star power, but I feel like for this build, you have to use that gadget and the Plant Life star power. So next up is one of my favorite brawlers, Rico. So all the time for me, I will always use Super Bouncy because especially with the buff, you can do a lot of damage. I think it's 572 damage every single time your bullet actually ricochets off a wall. It's insane amount of damage, but Robo Retreat is viable in some ways. Some people like to use it. Me personally, as I said, I always like Super Bouncy. The maps that Rico are good on at the moment have a lot of walls, so you want to get a lot of value with that star power. And Rico only has one gadget, and it's a super underrated gadget. Rico is decent in smell. So next up is Daryl. So I like to use the recalling rotator on game modes like Heist and Brawl because for every single bullet that hits, 25% towards your super is actually really good. And especially if you can get on the high safe as well, you can deal a lot of damage with that gadget. But then the other gadget that's came in, the one that slows, I forgot its name now, but it's actually really underrated. You can get a lot of decent kills, especially in Brawl and Gem Grab. It allows you to get closer to the enemy and deal a lot more damage because obviously deal more damage the closer you get with Daryl. And then for star powers, it's a really easy choice still hoops in every single game mode. Right, so next up is a Penny, and both gadgets, to be honest, are really bad. I don't like either of these gadgets, but I've been tending to use Pocket Detonator a little bit more on Penny just because of Edgar in the meta now and a lot of Mortis. A lot of really aggro brawlers on a gem carrier, so it's really surprising for people to use Pocket Detonator. So I like using that to kill the Edgars and the Mortis. But Captain's Compass, you can get a lot of value out of it, especially on like the high safe or the Ike, or if people are being aggro on you as well. So it's just personal preference with that one. But I always use Balls of Fire, Star Power, the other one. Not really that good unless you're playing Siege. So next is a Cole, and for gadgets, it's a really obvious choice with gadgets. Flying Hook is going to be the better gadget by far. And then for star powers, again, this one comes down to personal preference. It depends on your playstyle with a Cole. I'll say the meta revolves more around protective pirouette, but for me, I like power throw a little bit more because it allows me to get a lot more damage on the field. Protective can be really good in enabling you to get a lot of different kills, and it's really hard to kill you whilst you've got that protective pirouette. And the combo, specifically with that Flying Hook, if you've got super with protective pirouette, you can win a lot of different matchups. But as I said, it's down to personal preference. Next up is Jackie. Jackie's only got one gadget, so you're going to have to use that one. But with star powers, recently, I think it was Counter Crusher got a big buff. So I was using that a lot on ladder for like a week, testing it out, seeing whether it was better star power. But Hardy Hard Hat, I would say, is always going to be the better star power for Jackie. It allows her to have more HP in battles, and it's really influential. Counter Crusher is only really good against like Edgar, for example, or aggro brawlers on top of you, but there's not a lot of tanks in the meta, so Hardy Hard Hat's going to be a lot better. So next up is Piper. I'll say Piper has got two good gadgets and two good star powers as well. I really didn't like I think it was the auto aimer gadget, which knocks back enemies near. I didn't really like that before, but now with the meta, as I said, there's a lot of Edgar in the meta, a lot of Mortis in gem grab as well. That's where Piper's going to be used the most, and that's where that gadget comes into best, because you can counter Edgar a lot with that knockback gadget, hence making it a lot more meta than before. And then with star powers as well, Snappy Sniping is really good against tanks. I used to use that anyway. A lot of people used to use Ambush, but I used to use Snappy Sniping against those tankier brawlers, because you're allowed to get a lot more damage output on the field. And if you're using Ambush, Piper's just got such a slow reload speed, but that's going to be the better star power on the bushy maps like Hard Rock Mine, for example. If you're just sitting in the back sniping people, especially with an 8-bit turret as well, going to be getting a lot of damage. So next up is a Pam. Pam only has one gadget, but it's a really good gadget. But anyways, in terms of star powers, I always use Mama's Squeeze. It deals 800 damage per tick when an enemy is inside of that turret, and it can help you in them 1v1 engagements so much. 800 damage is really underrated. I think it's really overpowered. This should be nerfed for sure, especially in the Pam 1v1 interactions. You can just use your turret so aggro. A couple of ticks, that's 1,600 damage. That might not seem like a lot, but especially when it's healing you as well, it's an insane combination. You guys need to try out. Okay, so for Frank, this is another easy one. He only has one gadget, and the sponge star power is always going to be better near enough in every single situation with Frank, giving him nearly 1100 HP. Some people use power grab when it's a Frank versus Frank interaction. That can be okay, but sponge is going to be better near enough everywhere. So next up is a BB, and I would say in every single game mode, even in Siege, I would use Batting Stance, just because BB is a little bit squishy in this meta, especially with brawlers like Jackie, which are much better than her in game modes like Siege. I would use Batting Stance, and you've got that synergy with Byron as well with the healing. You've got the only gadget that she's got is a healing one, and that synergizes so well with a shield type mechanic. And as I said, BB not really the best in the meta, and I'll just use Batting Stance everywhere. Okay, so going into one of the most broken brawlers in the meta right now is B, and again, this is a really easy choice. Rattled Hive, the new gadget in the game, so much better than a Honeypot gadget. Just every single game mode, everywhere you want to be using this gadget is absolutely insane. And then again, unless you're a showdown player, you want to be using the Insta B load. You're allowed 2 3k shots. If you miss one, you're allowed to use another one, which is insane. Never really like honeycoating 3v3 modes, but as I said in showdown, you can actually use that star power. Up next is Nanny. Nanny only has one gadget. It's a really good one. The TP enables you to get a lot of different cool plays with Nanny. But in terms of star powers, I feel like this is another easy one. Autofocus enables you to have 2,500 more damage at max range when using that Nanny super. I don't really like the shield one, just because you can never really even, I don't think you can one-shot a single brawler in the game with that star power, and I feel like it's just a bit pointless. You kind of like feeding super. The only way that star power is really going to be good if you're defending a Siege bot, but you never really want to use Nanny in Siege. The best modes in Nanny are going to be obviously gem grab, Brawl, and Bounty. They're going to be the best modes, and that's where the star power is going to be best in. Alright guys, so next up is Edgar, but funnily enough, he doesn't have a second star power or a gadget, but both of these star powers and gadgets are actually really good with star power. 1000 damage on impacts is insane, especially in 1v1 interactions. And then the gadget as well, one of the best gadgets in the game, basically gives you a free super from spawn. So next up is Mortis. Mortis has 2 really good gadgets, and it all depends on your playstyle as well, because both gadgets are really viable. For me personally, I like Survival Shovel a little bit better because you have a 4-second faster reload. It enables you to get closer to the enemy. In certain situations, that's just my playstyle Mortis. I'm not the best Mortis, so you can take that with a little bit of pinch of salt. But then you've got the combo spinner as well, 1300 per spin every single time you use it. You got 3 usages of that. That can be really good to finish off some kills with Mortis. And then for star powers, a really easy choice. Cold Snake going to be by far the better star power. So next up is Tara. Tara only has 1 gadget. It's a really good gadget. Enables you to see through bushes and see the enemies for a certain amount of period. And then you got 2 star powers for Tara. This is always a common debate whether which one's the best one, but I feel like in this meta and for the past 2 to 3 months, the healing shade pet has been much better with the healing behind, but especially on grassy maps you can use the other one, the damage one, to scout out the enemies. But I would say most of the time I'm going to be using the healing pet. So next up, one of my favorite brawlers, Jean. This is a really easy choice again. He only has 1 gadget, one of the worst gadgets in the game as well. They've recently actually nerfed his gadget, such a bad gadget. But in terms of star powers, Magic Puff's always going to be the better star power in 3v3. The 400 healing per second to your teammates is insane, especially with combos like Max and other brawlers around that are going to get a lot of value out of that. You might not benefit off yourself, but your team's going to benefit a lot. And the support brawler that Jean is just a perfect combination. Up next is Max, and with her gadgets, she actually has 2 gadgets, but personally, and in a lot of pros' opinions, Phase Shifter is going to be by far the better gadget. Never really see anyone use the new gadget with Max. It's always Phase Shifter in terms of like Brawl, even gem grab. Every single mode I've seen this gadget being used in, it enables you to get so many good moments with Max. And then star powers, again, it's just scenario based, and mainly you want to be using run and gun because it allows you to reload ammo much quicker. But in certain comps, especially with like Jean and like comps that have tanks in them as well, you want to be using supercharge, especially in Brawl as well, because the supers are super important in those modes. It allows you to get a lot of different pressure, but it's all about playstyle, all about comps. Both star powers are good. Next up is Mr. P, and Mr. P only has 1 gadget, but he has 2 star powers, which a lot of people tend to switch a lot on. But in terms of competitive, I would always use Handle with Care. That extra range is super important with Mr. P. He basically has no range when he has his other star power, and in this meta, I feel like you need that extra range. I wouldn't even say there's a single mode or map I would use the other star power on. I've seen a lot of different people use it, but me personally always Handle with Care. Next up is Sprout, and this is a really interesting one because Transplant not really used too much within the community, but I think it's a really underrated gadget, and I use that most of the time when I use Sprout. So for example, the main ways I use it in game modes like Gem Grab, you've got Crystal Arcade. That's a really good example. You can use a wall to basically literally split open the mid, and you have 3 usages of it. You can just keep placing a wall every 10 seconds. It's a really toxic gadget to use. Then you've also got a really good gadget to use in combination with the photosynthesis star power with the shield and the healing. It's such an insane combination, 2000 healing every time you pop the gadget. But again, it depends a lot on the game mode. Siege Transplant can be really good, and it can depend on your playstyle too, but both gadgets I would give a go for sure. And as I said, photosynthesis is the only star power you can use. The other one is basically pointless. Next up is Byron. Again, like Edgar, he only has 1 star power and gadget. Star power for Byron really isn't that good. I'm hoping for a better star power for him when that is released. And then with gadgets, gadget's actually really good. One of the best gadgets in the game. The self-healing is actually so important to make some aggro plays. But as I said, star power really sucks. Hopefully there'll be a better one soon. So now moving on to the legendaries, we're starting off with Spike. He only has 1 gadget. The gadget's actually really good in game modes like Heist. And then for the star powers, to be honest, in this meta, Fertilize is actually making a comeback. I would say it's actually the better star power in this meta. In the previous meta, Curveball was so annoying, it was being used everywhere, but Spike's slowly falling out of the meta a little bit, and Fertilize allows him to stay alive a lot longer, especially on game modes like Heist where he's best, and Siege is actually making a bit of a comeback on as well with the amount of tanks being played in Siege at the moment. But Curveball is still a good star power as well. It just depends on the map, it depends on the mode. Both are super viable. So next up is Crow, and I'm excited to see first and foremost what you guys like to use in terms of builds in the comment section below. Let me know what you use in terms of gadgets and star powers, because both of them are really good for Crow. But for me personally, I use the defense booster gadget. It enables you to have 40% shield, damage reduction shield for I think around 3 seconds. It's actually really good. You get 3 usages of it now, and because Crow is really squishy, I like this one a lot more. It allows you to stay alive, but there's certain maps where your slowing toxin is really OP. For example, I can think of Kaboom Canyon, where Crow's actually really good in because of that gadget. 5 seconds slow is really OP. And then you've got both star powers as well. I've always used Carrying Crow for literally over a year now, because when they're below 50% HP, it deals an additional 120 damage, and Crow really sucks in the damage category. Doesn't do a lot of damage, so this allows him to finish off enemies below 50%, but a lot of people can use extra toxic as well. As I said, let me know down in the comment section below. I'm very interested to hear about this one. Next up is Leon. Leon only has one gadget, and unfortunately it's not really the best gadget. Hopefully we'll be getting a better gadget soon, but in terms of star powers, again, Smotro's actually got a big buff in the last set of balance changes, and it's actually kind of viable in 3v3 game modes now. I've used it a little bit, and I've actually had a lot of fun with it, but I still think Invisi-Heal is the better star power overall. It just enables you to stay alive much longer, 1000 healing a second, especially in 3v3 modes. I'm not too sure about Showdown. That's where Leon's played the most, but in 3v3, Invisi-Heal is going to be better. So next up is Sandy, and Sandy's actually had a recent balance change with his star powers. So his star power, Healing Winds, now heals 300, and that's the star power that a lot of pros tend to use now. 300 healing per second, as I said, is actually really underrated, especially when all your teammates are getting that 300 healing per second. Can be pretty decent. And then you've got the Rude Sand as well. That can be really good, because if there's 2 Sandy supers on top of each other, so in enemies and your own, if you've got the Rude Sands, you've got the damage, one of they've got the healing, you're going to be able to scout them throughout that Sandy super. So kind of depends. So healing wins when they haven't got an enemy Sandy, but in terms of like competitive, and say for example Sandy is a really popular choice, I would always use Rude Sands. So next up is Amber. Amber only has one gadget, but it's actually a really good gadget. But in terms of star powers as well, not too long ago she got a second star power, and I've never really used this star power or really got any value out of it, because it's really hard not to set alight the oil behind you when you're trying to get value out of that star power, trying to get that additional attack speed. So I've always used World Flames, because you're able to just constantly throw over multiple supers at the same time, covering a lot of the map up, and that's always going to be my preference. So next up is the Chromatic Brawlers, starting with Gale. So he only has one gadget, not really the best gadget for Gale. Unfortunately has received a big nerf, but with the star powers, I feel like both are super usable. So when you want to use the Blustering Blow, the one that stuns against the walls, it actually stuns them for 1 second. Really underrated star power. I use that, as I said, on ones with a lot of walls. So for example, on several hot zone maps where Gale's best on, I use that star power. And then when you're using Gale on the more open maps, that's where his other star power, the one that freezes for 0.3 seconds, actually really underrated, and you can get a lot of damage at range with this one. As I said, really underrated, and you can use both star powers for Gale. So Surge is next up. He only has one gadget, but I feel like whatever gadget's introduced with Surge, surely it's not going to be better than this gadget. One of the best gadgets in the game by far. And then star power is really easy choice again. Serve Ice Cold, going to be by far the better star power. The other one really serves no value whatsoever. That for sure needs a bit of a rework. Serve Ice Cold really OP in the fact that whenever you die, you still keep your second level, so you can constantly try and get that third level. The third level is the most important one with Surge, and Serve Ice Cold helps build towards that. Alright guys, so next up is Colette, and I feel like ever since the last set of balance changes, the mass tax star power is going to be better for Colette, just because whenever you super now, you get a 20% damage reduction shield for 5 seconds. That's actually insane. Whenever you hit an enemy as well, that's 30% reduction, but it's an extra 10% reduction on top of that, as I said. And in game modes like Heist, where she's really good in, and Gem Grab as well, you can just use that super to pick up gems in Gem Grab and get that 20% damage reduction. And then in maps like Kaboom Canyon, that I can think of, probably her best map in the game, this star power just goes to absolute town with Colette. And I always feel like when you use supers with Colette, you always end up dying whenever you push them forward, because it can actually get a shot off when you actually super them. They can actually kill you in that meanwhile. So this star power actually helps you from not dying on the way back. So lastly is Lou on the list, and Lou, in terms of star powers, I feel like this is a really easy choice. Lou did get a new star power, Hypothermia, not too long ago, but I didn't really make a video on that one just because it's really hard to really see the value out of that, because it actually slows down the reload speed of enemies, and as I said, it's really hard to tell the value out of that one. But with the super cool star power, it enables you to freeze enemies whenever they're standing within Lou's super, and it's just really good to cycle those supers over and over again. It's really hard to get out of Lou's super, so that star power just synergizes so well with Lou. Alright guys, this is going to be the end of today's video. I hope you really enjoyed this one. Took a long time to make, so I'd appreciate if you like the video and comment down below what you think of my list. And then tomorrow, probably going to be releasing a tier list as well, because with the new season approaching in Brawl Stars, with the new trophy reset, I feel like there's going to be some balance changes coming soon. It's nearly been a month since the last set of balances, so I need to bring out a tier list soon to recommend you guys what's best in the meta. But as I said, I've really enjoyed making this video. Let me know what you think of it in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.